Just a little bit about who we are, and I'll start a little bit about Conran Design Group. We are a design-led brand and communications agency. Like you suggested, Ramu, I'm probably one of the few ones representing the people on the other side of the table who sort of are sometimes very demanding from our print partners. But yeah, that's who I represent. And we collaborate with clients to develop and activate meaningful brands. We develop communications that make a difference, and across specialities like strategy, design, communications, activation, which I will shortly walk you through. We have been at the forefront of design, and we've been design influencers since as early as 1957, headquartered in London, but we have offices in New York, and the Mumbai office has opened as recently as early last year in February. And we are very happy to say that it has been a fantastic and phenomenal year one, and we are only looking forward to more amazing work. We enjoy a global reach as being part of Havas Group, which is then in turn largely owned by the Vivendi Group. Some of you might be aware of the body of work of Sir Terence Conrad. He's our founder, and we are very inspired by his body of work, by his philosophy, which is about design. Design's sole purpose is to improve everyday lives, and in that sense, democratizing design to the larger world. It should not remain within a bubble, and design should be used for a greater purpose. And therefore, at our core is this philosophy of designing advantage. We believe in the power of design that helps build brands to create communications that drive strategic and commercial advantage. We use design to inform, inspire, and engage. And I will sort of walk you through some examples that sort of illustrate this. Like I said, as a result of being part of the larger Havas Group, we enjoy some partnerships across agencies, across disciplines globally, which allows us to bring different kinds of expertise to the table. And also leveraging this sort of partnership with the Vivendi Group, we are able to collaborate and cross-pollinate from domains like music, gaming, the world of cinema, and we have some wonderful collaborative projects that have been a result of these associations. Quick glance at some of our core disciplines. Like I said, brand strategy is at the core of everything that we do, and that's where the seed of brands are laid. That sort of translates to everything that goes further thereon as manifestation. So we support businesses to define and manage their strategic objectives. Naming is a big one these days, and it's a very important part of brand creation. So we actively contribute and lend that expertise to the branding process. Excuse me. Visual identity, of course, it's one of the biggest manifestations of the brand journey, and we've helped create and develop and define some of the world's iconic identities over the last 60 years. Stakeholder communications is an interesting and important one. It may not be as largely consumer facing as some of the other disciplines, but it definitely is important in communicating the purpose and performance of the company. And this also happens largely through print, but is increasingly also having a digital presence. Branded environments, where we create consumer and workplace environments, places that inspire all sorts of audiences, both internal as well as external. And of course, packaging, where we design packaging that delivers commercial advantage. It strengthens the connection with the consumer at the point of purchase. Another interesting factor is the aspect of brand guardianship. The brands that you see on the screen right now, we have had long-term partnerships with them for over 15 years with some of them. We work with the corporate brands, we work with the product brands within these, under these corporate brands, and we help them enable, transfer the brand narrative and enable that manifestation years over years. Just a quick glance at some of the clients that we work with, and you can see there are some Indian brands popping up here, and we only hope that those will increase over time. But you can see it's cross category. There's pharma, there's lifestyle, there's FMCG. And what you see on the bottom right, Zydus, is our very recent case study out of the Mumbai office, which I will walk you through shortly. And therefore, what we uniquely bring to the table is this powerful combination of global expertise with local insights that are very relevant to design solutions in this part of the region. Quickly diving into some of these brand transformations that I have been talking about, starting with Zydus. What you see on the bottom left is Zydus is also a very legacy brand, a leading Indian pharmaceutical brand, as many of you might be aware. And the identity as it existed before existed since over 27 years. So that was also a very strong legacy, a very strong visual presence that they had already built years on years. But the times are different, consumer requirements are different, especially in the last 2 years, we've seen how important a role pharma companies have played in the lives of consumers. And therefore, the narrative had to move from being providers of medicine to enablers of a better lifestyle, to enablers of better health. Again, through this whole exercise of brand strategy, we came up with the new renewed brand purpose, which is to empower people with the freedom to live healthier and more fulfilled lives. And then the transformation does not happen only to the mother brand, it percolates to the entire brand ecosystem. And that is the entire idea that the single-minded brand narrative gets translated across, and it comes across as a unified, cohesive brand presence. And through various assets, color being the most important one, especially in the forum that we're talking about today, how it gets manifested and what it really connotes. So we chose contemporary modern colors that stood for the two pillars of the brand, of innovation and nurturance, that brought this alive, along with some other building blocks like iconography, like design devices, photography, and even a tone of voice that would all come together to create the single-minded brand narrative. And then just a quick glance at how the brand has been translated across touch points, both digital as well as print, as well as signage and outdoors, employee as well as consumer-facing communication, artifacts, as well as certain basic things like corporate stationery. And as we speak, the brand is being rolled out through a comprehensive guideline manual to the larger team, which will then take forward this particular brand universe in a cohesive manner. So that was Zydus. Coming to another big pharmaceutical brand, a global brand called Tewa. This is a very interesting packaging case study that I always like talking about. So Tewa is a global a global pharma brand, and their generic portfolio boasts of over 40,000 SKUs. And this is what they looked like earlier, due to acquisition, due to organic growth. It had just grown without having, again, a single-minded brand presence that would help leverage the brand sort of equity in the consumer's minds. And interestingly, for a pharma brand, their largest touch point with the consumer, with the end sort of user, is most often than not packaging. And therefore, we took upon this task of creating a patient-centric brand. I mean, of course, through packaging, the idea always is to premiumize, is to make packaging a little more attractive, aesthetic, to bring in a brand narrative. But like I said, design should also be solving problems. So we also wanted to solve the problem of making this a little more friendly for the patients, not just patients, but chemists, nurses, doctors. There's a whole universe of people who end up using packaging that is from pharma brands. And what we devised for Tewa is this very interesting sort of navigational system, which we call the Tewa solar system, where if you consider the mother brand to be the central sun, and then there are brands that sit very close to the sun that heavily borrow from the mother brand visual codes. And as you go further, you start reducing the codes of the mother brand and the codes of the product brand or the categories start getting more and more enhanced. But having said that, what you get at the end of it is a single-minded, cohesive, sort of one narrative brand, which makes navigation easy for the user. They know exactly where to look for the format, for the grammage. As and how it gets a little more consumer facing, there are elements and aspects that come about which help them make decisions in a faster and easier way. And of course, the bottom rung, like I said, sort of builds this partnership of product brands or legacy brands very beautifully with the mother brand. And then it does not stay this transformation does not stay limited just to packaging. It then gets transferred. It then should rather be woven across touch points like digital, like communication, like product interventions, so on and so forth. I would like to point out one very interesting case study here, which is from the light endorsement of the Tewa universe. And as you can see, that the big challenge here was to translate this very beautiful, layered, complex graphic that existed on the carton to the tube. And unfortunately, what happens in cases like these is the carton gets discarded, and what stays for a long time with the consumer is the inner tube. And then therefore the onus comes on design to be able to create this ownable elements, to create elements that are a stripped down version of the outer, to be able to sort of take forward the brand narrative as well as not lose the brand recall. So we are always seeking solutions. We are always looking for ways in which this bridge can be gapped, where this translation can become a lot more seamless, a lot more smoother, and we don't have to take sort of the shorter road for solutions like these. And this is also increasingly going to happen for a lot of, because we do work in a lot of healthcare, and pharma packaging ranges across formats, across substrates, across printing technologies. And this is always one of the challenges to seamlessly, translate that one visual treatment, one color across the entire portfolio. So that was Tewa, and which brings me to the last example within the universe of Danone. Danone is also a brand transformation case study out of the stables of Conran Design Group. We transform their identity to sort of bring to life their new positioning called One Planet, One Health. And as you can see, the language becomes a lot more approachable, a lot more friendly through the treatments and typefaces. But what I really want to talk about is a product brand under the Danone universe called Cow and Gate, which is an iconic brand in the baby food domain in the UK. What you see on the left is the portfolio as it existed before, and what you see on the right is, of course, the redesigned version. And these kind of requirements definitely come from the client, where we need to retain certain degree of familiarity from the previous version so that we don't lose, the certain iconic treatments, certain association in the consumer's minds about the brand. But you infuse a certain degree of contemporariness, you infuse a certain degree of premiumness while retaining certain codes. And again, the challenge here was quite similar. You can see it had to be translated across various formats, across various substrates, and then retaining those colors, retaining those treatments. And what happens is the minute you start moving away from a photographic treatment which existed in the previous version, you come to more flatter colors, you come to sort of more softer treatments. In this case, it had this sort of watercolor touch. It becomes that much more important for the consistency, for the color matching to happen. And in this case, we had to completely work without the use of black, which was another challenge in itself to solve. But this was successfully managed in the end. And again, a closer look just at some of these examples. Like I said, the textures in the illustrations, the softness, it all has to come alive, because all this looks beautiful and wonderful when we are creating it on the system, but it really does not mean anything if it's not translated as well as it has been envisaged at the time of creation. And like I said, then the assets don't stay limited to a certain touch point. It gets translated across the life cycle, across the ecosystem of the brand through various domains. So it could be different print versions other than packaging through which the brand needs to come alive, and therefore then again retain this degree of consistency and cohesiveness. And just a quick glance at another further product, range extension within Cow and Gate, which was a sub-brand called A2. This was a premiumized version of Cow and Gate, the base range. And again, the challenge here was, how do you bring about the premiumness from something that already looks premium enough? And again, the challenges here was, without the access to things like embossing, foils, or special inks, we had to sort of use, design elements, use gradients and stuff like that to bring out the touches of silver that we wanted to on the pack. And again, just a quick look at how the brand translates, then not just stays on the packaging, but other touch points and other communication elements. So that was a very quick ride, a very quick journey of who we are and what we are doing through a few examples. We are really looking forward to collaborate with these amazing print partners, the one that we just saw before this talk, and even others, where we can enhance, sort of bring about these visualizations, these brand narratives, bring them to life in a much more impactful way. So really looking forward to seeing all of that happen and collaborating with print partners and clients alike to make this come alive. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Mayuri. I think wonderful advice for printers and packaging business owners of how to work with clients and how they should translate their technology clout into a powerful brand strategy. Good tips about the role of design thinking with the Tewa Olfen example as well. One question for you though, Mayuri. Do you think packaging is at times over-engineered? And if yes, can you cite an example?
I think we all agree to that. I don't need to be an expert in the industry to say whether packaging is over-engineered, because e-commerce has been, it has grown exponentially, especially during the time of the pandemic. People have ordered so many things home, and e-commerce packaging has been the talk of, all our lives in the past 2 years. And every time I would receive a parcel, of course, that is changing now. But every time I would receive a parcel and I would feel, why does this small tiny thing need to be wrapped in a foil, in an outer carton, which is then packed in an outer brown box? So definitely these are the things that have a huge scope of intervention, that have a huge scope of improvement. Even smaller things, like I said, pharma packaging, or some of the other examples where we see sometimes the inner is a really small bottle. So therefore, to have a larger branding area, brands prefer to have a little bit of over-engineering, a little bit of more real estate to be able to create that. But I think it will be interesting to investigate and see if there are any other ways to make this come alive without and also then that reduces the use of material, and then that's also helping the larger cause of not putting in more material into the world. So that is about the structure, but also quickly touching upon the packaging treatments. Sometimes the over-engineering also happens in the terms of, the printing effects that one is using. Just because you have the scope doesn't mean we do the foil stamping and the texture and the holographic and everything. So again, coming from a point of view of brand strategy, coming from a point of view of a thought process, what is it that really your brand requires to make that statement? So yes, I mean, I think the over-engineering definitely needs some degree of investigation to see how that can be improved upon.